is being chased, thrown on the run, and it is caught. Touchdown, Keenan Allen. What a grab.
That's what I'm talking about. Hey, that's what I'm talking about. That's the warrior spirit right there, boy.
Huge sack by Joey Bosa.
90-yard touchdown. 90-yard touchdown.
That's going to be picked off at the 8-yard line by Derwin James.
Herbert sets his feet, takes a shot downfield, has Knighton. Caught! Touchdown, Chargers!
That's the greatest throw I've ever seen.
What's going on, everybody? Thanks for joining us on the Thunder Down Under Chargers podcast. Andy here with Alistair and Jack. How are the boys?
Woo! Very good, mate. Very, very good. How are you?
I'm doing good,
look,
mate.
I don't know if I'm that good. I've just been thinking, being a Chargers fan, and this has just come to me. Being a Chargers fan's kind of like getting catfished. It is. Like last week, we're so bloody excited. We're talking about 200 rushing yards. It's kind of like, you're talking, you might be talking to this good-looking girl on the internet, and suddenly you get invited to go to a cinema and meet up with a girl, and then you turn up and there's no one there, and ends up being Edmundo or someone online. You're just like, well, thought things were going pretty well, and then suddenly it's 4 offensive series and no points scored, and you're like, okay, this feels warm, this is familiar, this is Chargers football.
I guess now we know what Manti Te'o felt like for a very long time. Andy, Alistair just rudely interrupted my introduction to you, but you have some fantastic and exciting news. Would you love to share with the TDU crew?
Yeah, thanks, mate. Do have some wonderful news. My wonderful fiance Cash is pregnant with our first child on the way.
Yeah!
We've got a baby boy and a new member of the TDU crew due February around Super Bowl time. So, yeah, hopefully a good omen. 2 big things coming in that month. Fingers crossed. But yeah, very exciting times.
Fantastic.
Yeah, looking forward to be asking you a lot of questions, Jack, once you commence the next stage of the voyage. No doubt.
Well, we're very close. We're close to popping. So who knows when the little one will pop out. But awesome news, Andy. I'm so happy for you. As I know Alistair is as well. From one father to another.
All the little ones running around. Just get them in training for some special Chargers comments. And a part of the guest series in years to come. But excited, very excited. Before we get into preseason week 2, catching up on some news, Al, I'm going to throw to you. What's been going on?
Not a lot. A few press conferences after a practice earlier today, US time. Interestingly, the running backs took the mic today. Josh Kelly, Isaiah Spiller, and Kellen Moore. Geez, they're making it pretty clear, reading between the lines, that they didn't like the rush attack last year. That's my interpretation. They could not say more clearly that Kellen Moore's scheme is a downhill scheme. Spiller says it's similar to what Jimbo ran at A&M for him, and Kelly's like, I'm a one-cut runner. I like getting downfield. So they're all excited, and if they're excited, I'm excited. That's my main takeaway. Let's run that football, baby.
Absolutely. And it flows on. It's just the rapport that they're building with the run blockers as well, enjoying it as well. They're loving getting out off the ball and hitting guys. So it's great. It's all you can really ask for, is as long as they can translate that onto results on the field. It was sort of a big bar to expect, wasn't it? The 200 odd rushing yards in the week 1. Still ran the ball pretty well, but bit of come down to earth across the board, really. Jack, what have you been noticing this week? I think we've wave injured Andrew Traynor, the offensive tackle. Sad to see him go. You're a big trench guy.
Yeah. Listen, to be honest, I hardly even gave it a second thought. Poor guy. But what have I been noticing? I guess I have been grappling with what we're going to do at tackle, because what I saw against the Saints.
That's why I brought that up.
Yeah, well, good segue. You know me well, because what I saw against the Saints was not good at all. But before we get into that, I thought maybe how surprised I was actually at the solidity and the depth in the interior line, because Bailey, Clapp, and Solia to a lesser extent. And Alistair, I know you weren't a huge fan of Heimers' game, but I
I'm
saw
happy to
enough
explore
in there.
that, but you go first. I've
Yeah.
kind of changed my mind on it a bit.
Yeah, I actually thought Jaimez played quite well under centre, and I thought it was Zach Bailey was the highest rated PFF. Clearly, on my second watch of the offensive line, he was the strongest, and McFadden was fantastic too. I thought,
Oh yeah,
fantastic maybe being slightly hyperbolic, but solid. So, why did you, Alistair, think that Jaimez had a less than good game? Because from what I saw, the snaps were great. There was no fumbling, which I mean is a big thing for a center, and that's what we expect. It's a hard skill to pull off. And I saw him pick up a couple of blitzes, and his head was on a swivel more often than not. So yeah,
agree. He had a handful of reps that were just clear losses that to me kind of manifested some of his issues. I see his main issue as being play strength. In Nebraska, he was a right tackle, kind of played him as a guard and now moved him to center. So the body size required for those positions are quite different. And, PFF charted him as giving up 3 pressures. And that kind of reflected what I saw, 2 hits in a hurry. And when he does lose, I find he loses because a defensive tackle who's kind of bigger and stronger than him gets better leverage, and you see him push right back into the quarterback's lap.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on this, TDU crew. It might have been the Chiefs, but he came into play during the regular season last year, and it was a bit of a disaster because that's what happened. And I saw elements of that happening to him again on the weekend against backup defensive tackles. So I'm just a bit worried. Someone's going to have to miss out in this group. Typically, you'll take 9 offensive linemen, and look, I think he's fighting for his life out there for a roster spot because Will Clapp's the backup center. So where does that leave Heimers? Like, why are they not playing him at guard, I guess, would be my question.
Interesting one. Yeah, that's right. And I think that Jordan McFadden is light years ahead of where Hymus is in his third year as well. I just wanted to highlight, I said I've got a couple of little sayings that I like to talk about when I talk about offensive line. What I saw from McFadden, again, watching him really closely, I call this recoverableness. And he has a recoverability into his game.
Turn it up.
That I see that when when he loses at the point of attack or he loses slight leverage, he is good enough to hold up that defensive player to not give up either a sack or a hurry or a rush. And what I also love about him, and this is a little bit of coach talk, it's the head on a swivel leading to bear grizzle, baby. That's what I love. He, out of all the offensive linemen over the last 2 weeks of watching, when he finishes an assignment or he's getting out to run, I see him finish straight away. He's turning around saying, what can I do next? And who can I get my hands on?
Looking for work.
I love it. Road grader. So McFadden's great. And the interior depth is looking really, really solid.
Would you agree, though, that this week the offensive line was more of a problem than last week? And that's kind of why Stick's performance was more helter-skelter.
I think parts of the offensive line were shocking, yes, which is the tackle spots. But the interior, I thought, held up relatively well, given what was happening on the edges. Because when the pocket starts collapsing, I thought Stick had less time, and quite clearly less time to throw than what he did last week. But yeah, the Pleasance and Sorrell tandem is just, I don't know what to. I'm really
quite
worried
unpleasant,
about that.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Now, look, I know. Look, we got to throw our host back in because we're the big lineman chat guys. Whereas prof's a skill position, dude. Quarterback, running back, receiver.
Well,
talk to us about Easton Stick, Profi. How did you think he looked compared to last week's game?
I think that Easton Stick came back to earth. Regressed a little bit into what I recall to be his old self in the limited stuff that I've seen. Hung on to the ball a little too long. Used his feet really well. Like, he's a good athlete. And he maybe more often than not, he will pick the right time to go and when to go. And that showed. I think he had 63 rushing yards, which is great. But certainly a more muddy pocket than last week. Obviously, you guys have touched well and truly onto the line, but Yeah, I think there was just a little bit of indecision that crept in, and look, possibly a better opponent as well. A defense that they haven't really seen. Rams run a sort of similar defense, I guess, to the Chargers. Raheem Morris.
Good call.
So, it's something they haven't seen. Dennis Allen's a great defensive mind, and them Saints go hard. So, yeah, look, combination of all of those things. I don't think it's too much to worry about. Still made some decent plays, but accuracy was an issue. The first interception, just not seeing the guy coming in off the side in that zone. Yeah, look, not great.
I thought that looked worse on the broadcast than on the kind of from behind view. Looked awful on the broadcast. When you see him rolling out to the left, and the cornerback kind of just appeared. Yeah. So, yeah.
He just was sort of trailing the wide out and then just drifted off inside and was like, thanks. Yeah.
I guess Staley did say that the Saints gave them some pretty exotic and pro looks on defense as well. But Alistair, I want to ask you, does this shake your faith in Kellen Moore at all? Given how all of a sudden it was that the running game was pretty much stunted and Stick looked quite confused and we were struggling to actually produce yards.
Hasn't shaken my faith, no. I really try my best to read precious little into preseason. So, I saw enough last week to know, okay, this guy has good feel for certain runs to call in certain situations. I thought a lot of the running issues were kind of offensive line related this week, and it's not the starting offensive line. So that makes it difficult to put it or pin it all on the play caller, I think. For what it's worth, Isaiah Spiller had a couple really nice runs, especially that draw call where he might have got 16 or 17 yards through the red area. That's all the stuff you saw him doing in college, where he'd make a couple guys miss. He's patient. To me, he's one of the real preseason stars where, for whatever reason, we didn't see almost anything from him last year. Barely took the field in the regular season, whereas he looks like he is growing into his body because he was only a 20-year-old when he was drafted.
Yeah,
and good signs from him. So no, I'm not super worried about it.
Yeah, I don't even think that there's any kind of question. We spoke last week a little bit about Kellen Moore being the QB mind and crafting the game plan to the QB and helping him out. I don't know if he didn't do that. I think Stick probably was a little bit 21 to 41, pretty inaccurate. So I don't think there's too much to look into about Kellen Moore not doing the right thing. It's just a bit of execution that wasn't really there. The running back, Isaiah Spiller, was great. Super exciting to see him, Al. That draw play was great, but I really liked the maybe first quarter to the right. Looks like a dead end. Absolutely was. Then had the wherewithal to sort of footwork's really great coming back inside and only picked up 3 or 4, but it's just that recognition and that maturity, the mind to make that call and do it and execute it. And he looks like
avoided a big loss.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about Josh Kelly being a one-cut runner. That's a one-cut tackle for loss in my eyes if the shoe's on the other foot. So it's just a little diversity and dimension, another dimension to the group. And yeah, like you said earlier, they're all having a heap of fun. So
Maybe.
Andy, Andy, how do you feel? There's been some rumblings on Chargers Twitter that why didn't we get to see Duggan in this game as well? And it was all Easton Stick. What's your read on that? Do you think that it was just Stick's game and he needed to work through some things? Do you think we'll see Duggan 100% of the time in our preseason week 3? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I sure thought of it when I was watching. I thought I'd sort of expected to see Duggan come out in the second half. But then as the game went on and the nature of the game as well, I kind of agreed with what Staley said in his post-game presser. It was just that moment where we thought, he's actually played bugger all. So let's give him this to go through. It's a close game. It's there to be won. There's going to be those moments in it. So let's and that just sort of seems like the most sensible kind of answer. Does it mean that we'll see Max Duggan completely in week 3? I don't know. I think they'll probably go back to Easton for the first half, or the first quarter, and then we'll see a little bit of Dougie Doug. But Nah, I'm expecting more Easton. I don't see why they'd just give Duggan a whole game when Staley's spoken about Easton Stick needing more reps in sort of a better live environment. But
Who's
it's
more
interesting.
likely to need to bail the team out in a spot start?
Exactly.
So from that perspective, give the guy as many game snaps as possible. He's had
Absolutely.
precious
Couldn't agree with
few.
him.
And I kind of reckon, like, let's say we're in a real disaster scenario where Herbert gets injured and Stick gets injured. I don't think they're playing Duggan. I think they're signing someone. So I'm really quite... it doesn't bother me at all, is the short of it.
Yeah, I just thought it's an interesting one. It's you're doomed if you do, doomed if you don't. People would suggest that, oh, you need to see what you've got in a 7th round pick. We already know what Easton Stick is, and he's a known commodity. Yes, but then the argument you just made very eloquently, Andy.
Is he a known commodity? Like, I've seen two sides of a coin these last 2 weeks. I don't know what he is really.
Or it's just Duggan came out and couldn't do anything. This guy's nowhere near pro ready, and it's just not fair on everyone else who is on the field to have him out there. Or they wanted to win the game.
We saw that last week, Jack. We saw that last week. I think they don't just want to evaluate quarterbacks; they want to evaluate wide receivers and running backs too. So I think last week with Duggan, they just thought, maybe needs a bit more time in the oven.
Well, that's a good segue, right? I mean, what are your reads on? Alistair, what's your read on QJ? Because what's your read on QJ? Because it seems like he didn't look as fumbly. PFF released their top-rated rookies today, and he was number 5, number 6, so he's sitting up there. But yet there are all these still grumblings, and Popper's article said, "Oh, QJ dropped a couple, looking a bit fumbly."
It was almost a hit piece, wasn't it?
Just waiting.
Oh. I thought he played like that was better. He still doesn't quite take it out in front like that. There's an element of against his chest. But, he caught everything thrown his way against the Saints. But Popper's article was real. He dropped 2 important ones that he had no business dropping. And then the little nugget just to put the knife in. After training, Palmer, Williams and Keenan were working on the jugs machine and QJ wasn't.
Yes, yeah.
That's like, wow. This could have been like the one day QJ wasn't on the jugs machine. All that does is like, that just blows up on Twitter when people read that. So, but then again, Popper's a very thoughtful guy. He's an excellent beat reporter. So maybe he's seeing more and he's trying to communicate to us that, hey, just be patient with QJ because he's dropped the ball a lot all through training camp. And this might show up in games. And I think it's probably going to show up in games is my prediction, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I guess it's my turn to ask something. And maybe before we move off running game related or offensive line related chat, I see 2 kind of issues holding back the running game, holding back effective passing from the weekend. Tight ends, run blocking from the tight ends was positively shit ass, and
positively unpositive.
Offensive tackle pass protection. So this is the time where teams actually they evaluate what they have and they think we can't go into week 1 with this scenario, so we're going to sign someone. Don't mind who speaks to this, but do we think the Chargers need to make a move either to sign another veteran tackle or trade for a tackle or sign for a tight end, trade for a tight end?
I think that there is definite need to bring in tight end depth, run blocking tight end depth, and pass blocking for that matter as well, if you're a big fella. And yes, the current backup tackle situation scares the absolute shit out of me. So, work needs to be done. Something. Jack, go in more depth. You're philosophical now of it.
We haven't seen Xander Horvath on the field at all, and I thought he would be involved in the power run game more so, whether he's lining up to the left or the right of the right tackle and the left tackle, or whether he's in the backfield. So I don't know what Kellen Moore has in store in terms of utilizing him, because we haven't seen him at all in the preseason. I haven't even read anything about him being utilized. So is he purely a special teamer? And who knows there? Because that, if I know that Xander Horvath is going to be used like that because he's an absolute physical specimen, then the depth in the tight end room doesn't worry me as much. The tackles are another issue because, well, Pleasance, we know, I won't make the roster. That was very clear. He was definitely worse than Foster Sorrell. I did have in my notes, though, is the tackle position more difficult when you don't have pro players around you? So when you've got McKitty, to your right as a right tackle, and you've got maybe a second or third stringer in a Bailey or a McFadden there, does it make your job that much harder? Does it make it are you exposed even more because you don't have a really good center who's diagnosing the pressure? Does it make it harder, and do you show up more when you don't have a great signal caller under center? I mean, I was trying to give the benefit of the doubt to both of them because Sorrell, to his credit, in big games did actually look okay in points, not as useless as he has been over the last 2 weeks, and same with Pleasance. It's an interesting one. I don't know the ins and outs of offensive line play that deeply to perhaps answer those. But Alistair, would you pontificate over that?
I think that the Chargers' third offensive tackle is Jamari Sawyer. That's what I think.
Yeah.
I think their plan is we're going Slater and Pipkins, and if one of those goes down, God forbid, we're going to shift Sawyer across, and Bailey and McFadden have looked real good. They can play guard.
Yeah.
And that makes me feel a bit more comfortable because we saw how good Sawyer was last year. Is it really important that your offensive tackle 4 is able to step in and play well? You decide, listeners. There are some names out there. Josh Jones is an offensive tackle for the Cardinals who suggestions are could be traded for. You have really older veteran guys like Jason Peters who one day will be in the Hall of Fame. He wants to go, around again for what's almost his 20th season in the league. So there could be names there, but I think there's a real shortage of offensive tackle talent in the league. You're seeing it across league-wide. The Jets are struggling. Lots of teams. The Bills, they're all looking to sign someone. And the only names you can find are like Jason Peters, Taylor Lewan. There's no one to sign.
All right, Alistair, gun to your head. Are you signing a tight end or are you signing a tackle? What do you do? You've got one. You've got to choose.
Tight end.
Wow. Interesting.
Yep. I am, because I do think we've got 3 competent tackles in the house, and McFadden played tackles his whole career for Clemson. Tight end, I don't know if we've got one good tight end in the room. We might have, 3/4 of one out of 4. No disrespect.
Yeah. Well, especially, look, Gerald Everett's good. He's not top 10, but he's doing a good job. And everyone else, Parham's not stepping up. McKitty's McKitty. And Stone Smart's the other guy who is giving it a red hot go. He was had moments of being really impressive. He was the lead blocker.
Him, man.
Well, he was the lead blocker. Not only he led the tight end room with receptions 4 for 37 or something off the top, and he was the lead blocker in one of Stick's rushing touchdowns. Cool. It's good. Good to see the fight.
I got
it
a
more
request.
than Campmoyer personally.
Yeah, me too. I got a request on Bolts from the Blue from Fiat Books, one of the users on the site. He said, "Al, can we expect a song about Stone Smart?" And I said, "I don't know. Like I did, Sage Surratt was one thing. Maybe if he makes the team, we can do a Stone Smart song." So, TDU crew, if there's any parody song you think would be appropriate for Stone Smart, let me know. If he makes the roster, I'm gonna whip it out. Much to Kev Diego's chagrin.
Yeah. It's fascinating. I don't know. I was hoping, because I saw enough. There were a couple of blocks from McKitty last week that I went, oh, actually, this looks okay. Maybe he's improved. But yeah, the tight end room is a fascinating one. Again, Horvath, what's he going to do? Where's he going to be? I would sign a tackle.
Is he a cut candidate, guys? Because I interpret him not playing an offensive snap as meaning he's safe, but he was playing on special teams. I don't could he be a surprise cut, or is he totally safe? No idea.
Is it an ace up the sleeve? Is it like a?
I think it's more like that. Yep.
You think it's more like that? I think tight end's more important than tackle too. I'm with Al on the being able to move things around, even though you'd like Sawyer to start at right guard and keep him there. Yeah, I think tight end's an important thing. We just got no no versatility, a little bit of chip and block stuff. But I saw one of Easton Stick's sacks. Hunter Campmore just got he just put his hand up and the guy just walked past him to assist with the takedown. And I was like, dude, you didn't even see him. That stinks. Why are we cursed with the tight ends? Congratulations to Antonio Gates on getting inducted into the Chargers.
Good segue. Yeah. Well done. Yeah, you got there.
Yeah, nice.
No, good on him.
Very good. All right, moving along. Have we got? Oh, we've got more room for the receivers now that we're getting into that game. We spoke a bit about QJ and just upping his consistency. We finally got to see John Hightower on the field, and that was a bit of a car crash. A few balls that were thrown his way were crud, but also just wasn't really in tune. Quite a surprise considering.
Starts.
Yeah. Yeah, not great. Keelan Doss. He's been playing pretty well the last couple of games and has been relatively consistent in training camp throughout. So maybe he's jumped ahead of Hightower on that depth. I know Hightower does have the return flexibility, but Keelan Doss is actually like a big-sized guy. He's almost like a tight end-sized dude. It's just maybe we don't need that extra body with Mike Will and QJ, but yeah, he's performing, so you can only reward that, I guess. But
Coach Andy,
yeah.
if you're Staley, do you put more stock into all the plays Hightower is making with Herbert during training camp and joint scrimmages, or what Hightower did in a real game, SoFi Stadium, pressure, real life stuff?
Even though it's a different quarterback, well, I think if he's not, catching. If he's not, in tune with the line and the snap of the ball, causing false starts, if he's not catching the ball thrown by Easton Stick, I don't think he's going to fare any better trying to catch Justin Herbert's throws or, when it's real life game time. So, maybe that's, Staley speaks highly of him, but, he can only perform, right? So maybe that's not the way.
I just don't think there's room. I just don't think there's room for Doss. I don't think there's room for Hightower either. And it's almost null and point because of Darius Davis playing in the slot and the way that he can catch the ball.
Yeah,
I think we're rolling 6 deep. I think we're going Allen, Williams, Palmer, QJ, Guyton, Davis, and it frees up a roster.
It depends if Guyton is on the pup list to start the year. And if he is, do you want a 6th wide receiver, or are you happy to go 5 wide receivers and someone on another position group?
Well, I think if Guyton's still on pup, I think you go 5, and you hope. Well, depending on how severe Guyton's injury is, but if Guyton comes back, you want to
Mike Williams and Keenan Allen missing as many games as they did last year. You think that it's worth the risk to gamble again?
Yep,
with this offensive change,
because I think there's other players that deserve a roster spot that are just on the edge in other positions, because you can say the exact same thing for the defensive line. And I would say that our defensive line hurt us more last year than the lack of receivers did last year. That's just my personal opinion.
That's fair with the injuries that they had. Yep, for sure. Because we had other guys step up to be able to. Josh Palmer was great, etc. So, yep.
And I think with Justin Herbert as well, with the coming along of Spiller, the coming along of Kelly, the coming along of Eckler as well, I think there's going to be enough weapons to throw the ball. Everett, and with Moore's scheme, it's not going to be relying on stick routes. I know we've done that one to death, but I think there's going to be far more creativity, and Herbert will be able to get the ball to all sorts of different other weapons. So that's how I would roll. There you go. Might be controversial, but oh well.
No, it's fair enough.
I think that's a fair call.
See the rationale.
We got anything further on the receiving group or the offensive as a whole?
One final point. This was like a bit of a preseason hype monkeys struggled. It was more like hypothermia, really. It was Elijah Dotson and John Hightower. They're two of everyone was so excited about Dotson, and dropped consecutive pass attempts that basically ruined the game. And John Hightower, everyone was so excited to see him in a game, and false starts galore, and kind of struggled. So I don't know. It was a bit sad. A lot of Bolt fam was keen to see them play.
Yep. Yeah. The game is played between the sticks, and it's played between the ears. That's it, baby.
A week is a long time in footy, as we say in AFL, for poor Elijah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is.
that's right.
Anyway, should we move on to the defense?
Disappointing in the receiving game. Still showed a little bit of pizzazz in the running game, but, yeah, defense. What do you got, Jack? Do you want to start in the line again? I know that's where your eyes were glued.
Yeah,
Wouldn't know
that
what
was
a cornerback was if it hit you in the face.
correct, or a safety, or anything like that. Let's start. I won't start with the big boys. I'm gonna start off with one of the guys that absolutely popped off my screen, and I commented, or I tweeted, or X'd it, whatever the fuck you call it now. I don't know what it is. But my Super Saiyan Diane Henley, that guy, the difference that he showed from week 1 to week 2. He seemed to be diagnosing faster. Yeah, he was still a little late to some tackles, but the speed that he showed from sideline to sideline, and this guy was just everywhere.
Crazy speed.
It was absolutely everywhere. And his ability to get into passing lanes, that instinct to know where to be, to disrupt either the route or to disrupt the throw was fantastic. This guy, I have this sneaky feeling that he's going to be very good. He's going to be very good. And yeah, listen, I'm sure that when he plays his first snap in the pros, he might, again, it'll be a little bit too much for him in his first year, but he's showing me, like Justin Herbert did from week to week, he showed growth, he showed development. So Diane Super Saiyan Henley, love you. Well done. Well done. Alistair, this is something that I did want to bring up with you. I wrote in my notes that the defense seems to be more airborne. And let me just explain what I try and mean by airborne. It seems that passing lanes are more disrupted. It seems that hands are around the ball a lot more, and players are tending to jumping a bit more. And there just seems to be more disruption than I can remember from last season. Would you agree? And what would be some of the reasons why perhaps we're seeing this in the preseason with these guys that, aren't, they're not top tier talent. And this is a very long-winded question. And is it maybe a sign of what first team defense is doing, given the notes from Popper saying that the defense is kind of dominating the off-season camp?
Bit to unpack there. I haven't noticed more of it. I don't doubt that it's happening. Could be a product of more talent on the field, just better players, better depth. I think there are a few guys really stepping up the moment. Like Dean Leonard, to me, looks terrific.
Your boy.
As a backup cornerback. My boy, I'm happy to claim him. I love what we've seen from Dean Leonard. Same with Tooley. Tooley's had such an impressive start to the preseason. From his few snaps he's been on the field, he looks mature. His body's mature. He does those veteran things, like you say, Jack. Like, he's got a good awareness when to rush, when not to. He's asked to drop back in coverage a bit more. I know some fans aren't happy with kind of Staley's scheme and how edge rushers drop into coverage sometimes, but maybe that's what you're seeing, Jack. Maybe sometimes you drop into coverage, you get a hand up, you bat a pass, results in an interception the other way. Because, geez, guys like Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Tooley, they've got great instincts. So I like seeing it. And maybe the rest of it is blokes fighting for their lives. Matlock, Hinton, all these guys. I've got to do something here. If you're going to throw it, I'm going to jump and bat a pass.
They were everywhere. Just seeing Hinton getting tackles on the sideline, Matlock getting a tackle on a screen. Like, awesome how much energy they're flying around. Diane Henley was the perfect example to start that off, Jack. That's he was really impressive. Like, tempering, he's only played 2 preseason games of NFL, but the athletic traits are there, and once he starts to learn a little bit more about his role, he had the green dot for the first half, so there's trust, and he's obviously an intellect and a leader as well. So it's really good signs, really good signs to see. Far more speedy progress than we saw or have seen from Kenneth Murray, but we'll let this season play out before we decide that kind of depth chart conversation. You're probably still going to see him come in situations or, specific packages. Yeah, that's right. But doing a good job, pretty good. He was unlucky on the wheel route to Miller, that connection. That was a great throw by Winston.
Great throw and catch, yeah.
But, the next snap he picked up, I think he was in coverage again and, got a stop straight away, or he was involved with a run stop. So, he's got that mentality, and it's really awesome.
Watching Tooley as well, and PFF gave him a fairly average grade. So I looked at that and then looked at the tape, and I didn't think he played perhaps as bad as and the pass rush as well. I didn't think he was as bad as perhaps the grading said. But there was a situation where it gets me really excited, and like McFadden as a rookie, where I see smarts, I see a want to do something after you've done your job. So whilst McFadden might do his assignment and then, engage and execute his assignment, then look to continue the play, look to do something else. The smartness of Tooley was fascinating to see. It was about 2 minutes to go in the first quarter. And this was just before his tackle for loss, the big tackle for loss that all got us really excited. The snap before, or a couple of snaps before, he gets held up by the tight end quite badly. He tries to power through. The leverage is just not right, and you can see him. He's really stuck. The tight end gets hands on him, and it just doesn't work. Now, then the tackle for loss, what he does to Trevor Penning, he should be arrested for, because Trevor Penning has got no fucking idea about what Tooley is going to do, because he thinks that, okay, he's seen last snap. All right, Tooley he wants to beat me with power here. This is what's going to happen. What Tooley goes, hold on, I'm going to I'm lining up slightly outside of his Trevor Penning's left shoulder. And what he does, you see Penning go to make contact, and Tooley just goes whoop, straight across his face, around, bang, tackle for loss.
Swing,
and then
inside counter, fuck off.
And I mean, Trevor Penning's a first-round draft pick tackle. So, and then the next one after that people might not have watched, he then powers straight back into Trevor Penning, and Trevor Penning kind of is a bit worried too. So what you're seeing there, guys, is you're seeing a guy that's smart, is not just a one-trick pony. He's clearly learning and going, and obviously learning things off both. So, yes, sir. Joey, did I do that right? Yes, sir. No, sir. So, man, that's exciting. That really got me going, got me hard. No, going.
You can tell by the way that he is on the sideline well after he's done his job for the day. He just lives and breathes it, and so he's just got a perfect kind of mentality to just continue to improve and try and be the next Bosa and Mac or better. It's very, very exciting. We spoke a little bit about him last week, and I think I felt like I saw improvement for the most part in JT Woods. Although I think he has a little bit of competition for that sort of safety, maybe not safety 3 spot, but in the mix for some backup snaps. I'll get to that in a sec, but yeah, he had a pass breakup. JT Woods, he was involved a lot in run defense, getting some stops and assists, tackling, playing quite close to the line of scrimmage at times, but still had some like really ill-disciplined moves. There was a stop at the sideline, and after he took his helmet off and smashed it into the ground, just like a weirdo, or a psycho more so. And then after another one, maybe one of his pass breakups, he spiked the ball and didn't get called for it, which is just really insolent and immature kind of thought process for a guy.
Did you notice that
like
on the watch when you had your eyes closed, or on the rewatch?
No, I was awake this time. Yeah, I was awake this week. Very good. So I saw a little bit of improvement, but still got to fix that mental aspect of his game, because I would have no doubt that he would have been spoken to after the head slap, which cost him money. Surely they would have said something, and then he has 2 little kind of weird outbursts. Just get the pass break up, get around your teammates, pose for a photo like the Jack boys of old. Don't go doing. Was it Stevie Johnson who got that first down, spiked the ball, and then cost us a delay game penalty?
Jeez,
years
that's
and years
taking
ago.
it back. Wow, yeah, Stevie J.
Yeah, I remember that stuff that just makes me so mad, because it's dumb as all hell. But
dumb because he was it's clearly his best game as a Charger. Clearly,
yeah, I agree.
It's just moments like that
he was
where
around
you're
the
like,
ball, PBUs, tackles.
He got sucked in on an early one on a screen early, but I think
he did.
most of the guys
Yeah,
did.
he completely missed that. Yeah.
Yeah. but on the whole, like better. The guy that is impressing and just who seemed to be everywhere is Raheem Lane. Really busy on special teams, 4 tackles on defense. I don't know. It's just he's impressing. He's impressing me. He's standing out. I don't think too much of it, but maybe just a little bit of competition. If only Woods could get his head right, they could start playing better football. But
Well, I think he's going to make the
Lane,
roster.
Yeah, probably is the safety 4. I think he's jumped the gun on Webb.
Yeah.
Staley loves him too.
I'm worried about him in pass coverage personally. I thought that the hype for Lane was a bit overblown. Rewatching, he gave up that really nice catch to the Saints tight end, Krul. He just looks like he doesn't know what he's doing in coverage. But that's okay. He's a strong safety type who's a really good tackler and play special teams. JT Woods is probably the opposite, right? He wants to exist out in space with breaking up balls, and it's the tackling close to the line of scrimmage stuff that he's still working on. So...
Well,
not bad.
Lane, weirdly enough,
you're
played 26 snaps in the slot. That's where he played most of his. That's where he played most of his. I guess he's close to the line of scrimmage, isn't he? Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if I trust.
Probably because
I don't know if I.
You don't know if you trust.
Oh, JT Woods, Jasiah Taylor just yet. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, we haven't seen much from Gilman because he's been injured. But yeah, it'll be fascinating to see who that slot cornerback is, or whether that sort of that nickel back who's going to come on in those packages. But yeah.
Al, what we struggled a little bit against the big receivers against the Saints with Davis and Kroll. What do you have any concern about that? Do you think we were playing small? Jasiah Taylor in particular struggled and really concerns me as that slot option at the moment, because do we have an answer to the bigger guys, the bigger receivers?
Yeah, I think for tight ends, the answer is Derwin. And for bigger receivers, Michael Davis and or JC Jackson. So I think what we're seeing is really a backups thing. There aren't a lot of cornerbacks who are slot corners who can cover tight ends. We could see a problem with Asante or Jasiah, as you've just mentioned, on those kind of big, strong Kelsey-type tight ends, Dalton Kincaid, other good ones that the team has to face this season. I think it's just like that is a general problem with wide receivers on DBs. You're always going to have size advantages as a 6'4", 6'5" wide receiver or tight end. I think we're probably better placed than most teams in terms of having a few DBs who can stick it to that type of receiver.
Yeah.
But
So
not good on
Al,
weekend.
in a nickel package, then who's in injuries aside? What does our nickel package look like in terms of so who lines up where?
Yeah. Nickel is, if JC Jackson's healthy, he's outside. Michael Davis is outside. Asante Samuel's in the slot. Alohi Gilman is a safety. Derwin James is the other safety. As soon as we go into dime, it kind of just depends on the down and the distance. But I think you're mixing it up. Then you're maybe going Derwin as the dime linebacker, JT Woods and Alohi Gilman as the 2 safeties, and probably maybe on early downs, the slot corner is Jasiah rather than Asante. It all changes if JC's not healthy. Then suddenly Asante Samuel's outside corner.
Yep.
Jasiah is inside
Jasiah's
corner.
in the slot. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. I think we've got size, we've got the speed. Whether we've got the head, that's the. And I guess I was alluding to that earlier. Is this airborne stuff? I don't know. Maybe I'm just reading too much into it. But is it? We've talked about. This is Staley's 3rd year. The framework is built. People know the schemes. We know that they know that it's going to be a mix of man and a bit of zone. They know their assignments. They're kind of working together. They understand it's a space defending scheme. They understand what everyone else is going to do. And we've heard over and over again, SJD, being like, it takes at least 18 months to know the guy next to you, what he's going to do and what he likes, all that kind of stuff. So I will again predict that the defense starts out really hot. The offense is going to take some time. And everything that has been said in Popper's reviews, and we've seen at training camp, is that Herbert might be taking a little bit of time to get used to what's going on. And the defense is playing out of their minds, hence these interceptions by JT Woods and Asante Samuel Jr. and all this kind of stuff.
Good call, Jack.
Alistair,
cool.
I'm sorry, Andy. I feel like I'm going to Alistair all the time. I don't know why I am, but I apologize. I've got a question for you later. What is there a spot for Jared Clark? 72.
Ooh,
Big
you
boy,
sussy up on
nose,
slap
tackle.
it down. Love this boy. Love him. I love the run defense this week in general. Kept the Saints to 63 yards from 24 carries, 2.63 yards a pop. That is awesome. That's dudes fighting for their jobs out there. Don't know if Gerard Clark will make the final 53 because it's tough. It's tough sledding. Unfortunately or fortunately, depending on what your view is, it seems that Nick Williams is making the roster, even though we haven't really seen him at all, because he's just not playing in the preseason. And Staley signed him from the Giants, and he was with him in Chicago. So to me, that means you're going to have Austin Johnson, Fox, Sebastian Joseph Day. You're going to have Nick Williams. I might have just forgotten someone, but fighting for that final DT roster position, I think it's this competition between David Moa, Gerard Clark, CJ Okoye, Terrence Lang, Christopher Hinton. I think there's only room for one of them. I like Clark because he's the only big boy who, to me, I saw him stop the run on 3 different snaps against the Saints. The problem the Chargers have had is when Staley plays his tight front, where you only have 3 defensive tackles on the field at the zero technique opposite the center, 2 on the 4-eye, which is just inside the offensive tackle. That you're playing gap and a half responsibilities as a defensive tackle. So your nose guard has to be sturdy. And Staley keeps running SJD or Austin Johnson in that spot. And last year it didn't really work. He had to resort to zone run blitzing and other things like that. Gerard Clark projects as a dude who can actually do that the proper way. And Lance Zierlein had him as a 5th round graded prospect coming out of Coastal Carolina. He only slid due to some pretty serious injuries. He looks good out there. So, geez, if he does make the 53, I hope to God he clears waivers, because I can see him doing a bit of the Fahoko stuff this year where he either starts on the 53, goes to the practice squad, but I think he's got a role to play. What do you think, Andy? Have you noticed him at all?
Yeah, I thought he was awesome. He's such an athlete. Just good, such a move. He's got that ability to move off blocks as well, to chase out the runner, or yeah, he's got great size. Sort of got technically, I guess, an assist in a sack. That hit and finished up, well. And he just did it really. Yeah. That was everything I've just said was perfect in that play. Shed the block off the tackle, got out into space, made Winston come back in, and then Chris Hinton jumped all over him. Like you said, I think Tito might have been the one that you were missing in that list, potentially. Yeah. It's a pretty crowded room, so it really depends on where they decide to lie a deficit as to whether there's a spot for him going forward. But yeah, he's got great size, great athleticism. Haven't seen anything but pretty good stuff from him.
Andy, I said I had a question for you, and I've asked a couple, but I felt like I've been directing the tail this time. I apologize. CJ Okoye, love, feel good story. Is this another Young Wei coup, and we sign him because we want to, feel good. We want to connect with the community. We want to see like the Chargers are going to be this place where, a kid from Africa or somewhere there. Where's he from? What's
Nigeria?
Nigeria, kid from Nigeria comes in, looks good for the NFL.
Africa
talent.
Or somewhere there.
Sorry.
Play on.
I apologize. That was Nigeria. I should have said that.
Shit house.
It's like Australia or somewhere there, big country. Could be from anywhere. Do you reckon two parts. Do you reckon he clears waivers if we put him on the practice squad? Or do you sign him? Or do you sign him because he's such a feel-good story and he's developing so quickly? Or is that a thing the Chargers of old would do because it's a silly thing to do?
I'd really like to hope we don't just sign him because it's a feel-good story. That's the most revolting thing I've ever heard. Could be a Chargers thing to do, though. Will he clear waivers? He's an animal, man. Yeah. Watching that, there's some kind of raw athletic anger and talent. And I'm not going to suggest where that might come from in his life earlier or otherwise, but he is just an animal, and it's really fun. I don't think he makes the roster. I hope he clears waivers and we can land him on the practice squad.
Yeah. But, is the team going to put him on the 53? To not clear waivers, a team would need to put him on the 53 who's never seen him inside their building.
Yeah. I don't think that happens. I think he clears waivers.
I just wanted to
It's
do
exciting.
that dance. He does the really cool sack dance that I really love. Easily the best celebration that I've seen on the Chargers in a very long time, other than when Joey Bosa did the teabagging.
Fortnite
The Fortnite teabagging was very good.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. Who's a player here, that might clear waivers if we put them on the practice squad? Could it be? I mean, where's Matlock in all of this? As
That's
a
who I
defensive
forgot.
tackle?
That's who I forgot.
Yeah.
Is
Yes.
Tito's going to start the year on the pup list, I think.
Yeah.
Austin Johnson's off the pup. Matlock ain't going anywhere, baby.
No.
So this is the Chargers. The Chargers do not cut draft picks the year they draft them. I can't think of maybe Tevin Reese. There are very few. Basically, if you're a draft pick, you make the team in your first year. And Matlock's actually flashed. So he
Oh, yeah. He was good
and
as well. Showed great
shout
speed
out-
too. And
Shout out to Matlock, because whilst Spanos was being spoken to in the booth, there was actually a very, very good play that he made, because he picked up the short pass and he was able to tackle and stop it and leave it to a field goal. And that was never even talked about, because it was there was John Spanos on the mic. So Matlock showed enough. I didn't think he showed as much as he did last week. I was watching him quite closely. He seemed his tackling was not as strong, I didn't think. But again, he reminds me a little bit of Max Crosby. I don't know why, just sort of his facial features and how he operates. Max Crosby's far more of an athlete and a sort of edge. But Matlock's got that dog in him. Don't mind it. Don't mind it at all.
Yep, he was probably the last lineman that I wanted to touch on as well, but I think that's just kind of it. Let's touch on special teams. Dustin Hopkins got out there, kicked an extra point. Good on you. Dicker looks solid, and I think it's his job. So
Me too.
Yeah, solid dick.
fat. Tackling and coverage is looking really impressive, and if you follow PFF, we're actually the first ranked team with an above 90 grade in special teams, which is actually a dream come true just about for, well, look, let's not go too hardcore, but for Chargers fans, special teams has been an absolute woe since a friend of the show, Darren Bennett's days, let's put it that way.
Jack's going to have a bassinet for the baby girl, and then a shrine, just an ode to Coach Fucking Ficken Fiken. It's going to have each pronunciation's going to be written in like different baby letters.
Yeah.
Just over a little photograph of Ryan.
Different animals.
I have rosary beads, and I go Ficken, Fucking, Fiken, Ficken, Fucking, Fiken. Number one special teams in the league, baby.
Yeah, it's good to see. We're seeing a lot of hungry guys out there flying around, making tackles. I was a little concerned. I think it was Raheem Lane on the first play of the day, just flew past the returner, and I was like, ugh. But he worked his way back into it, and they're hungry. So it's good to see. JK's
Punting was great. Yeah, sorry, Andy, you said it.
Yeah, he's punting really well. Yeah, the protection looks good. The gunners look good. Yeah, we'll see what happens with the next week as we move into the 49ers. Until then, guys, unless there's anything from either of the two of you, guys, thanks for tuning in. You can find us. Please join us on Twitter if you have it, at TDU_Chargers. We love a bit of that. You can see it just at the top of the screen on the left above Ali's head. Jack's put together a little drawing and stuff. Bunch of spare time on his hands. Lucky him. Yeah, jump on Twitter and get on the discourse with us there. If you're watching us on YouTube, like and subscribe, and give us a recommendation on your audio podcast devices. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on the Thunder Down Under Chargers podcast.
Bye.
See ya.
Back pedals looking, firing, he's got Floyd turning, got it, zigzag, 10, 5, high step, touchdown, San Diego!